Her name is Delaney Morgan. She wakes up before sunrise, not because she needs to, but because her body never learned how to rest. Her apartment is modest, 2 bedrooms, creaky floors, and a hallway lit by soft yellow bulbs. But to her, it's a sanctuary, the kind of peace she never knew as a child. Delaney is a single mom. She raises her son Theo alone, 6 years old, sweet as syrup, with a laugh that sounds like sunlight. But there's a storm behind her eyes, one she hides well. To the world, she's composed, responsible, maybe even a little overbearing. But what they don't see are the panic attacks behind closed doors. The way she triple checks the stove, the windows, the locks. The way she memorizes the route from Theo's school to home and tracks his walk in real time just in case. She tells herself she's just being careful, but deep down, she knows. She's afraid. Not of strangers, not of the world. She's afraid of the people who raised her. Delaney grew up in the middle of nowhere. Her parents weren't violent, they didn't leave bruises. But what they left was worse. They left voids, silent rooms, locked basements, cold forests, and a girl who learned to survive by learning to disappear. As a child, Delaney was punished for crying, for speaking, for asking to come inside when the wind howled too loud. Her parents called it training. She called it loneliness. And now as a mother, she walks through life carrying a silent vow. My son will never know that kind of fear. I will break this cycle even if it kills me. That's Delaney Morgan, a woman with one foot in the past and both arms wrapped tightly around her future. The kitchen smelled like pancakes and sunlight. Theo sat at the small table in his dinosaur pajamas, swinging his legs and humming some made-up tune. His hair stuck up at odd angles the way it always did in the morning, like joy had exploded from his dreams and settled on his head. Delaney stood at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced hands, but her eyes kept drifting, not toward the batter, but toward the window. She checked the lock again, even though she'd already checked it twice. "Mom, can we have chocolate chips in them today?" Theo asked, eyes wide with hope. She smiled. "Of course, buddy." It was such a small thing, chocolate chips and pancakes, but to Theo, it meant everything. To Delaney, it was a quiet victory. She could say yes. She could give him comfort, sweetness, warmth, things she never had growing up. He didn't know that, didn't need to. She watched him pour syrup too fast, spilling a little onto the table, then wiping it with his sleeve. He giggled. She laughed too. It was easy, this moment. Too easy. And that's why it scared her. Because Delaney knew better than most, the world doesn't always wait for you to finish breakfast. The phone rang just as Delaney was rinsing off the pancake plates. She almost didn't answer. The screen lit up. Zane, her ex-husband. The man who loved Theo but never truly understood the reasons behind her overprotectiveness. They didn't talk often, and when they did, it rarely ended well. Still, something in her gut said, "Pick up." "Hey," Zane's voice was casual, too casual. "Just wanted to let you know Theo's with your parents. They took him out for the day." The room tilted. Time stopped. Her hand gripped the edge of the counter, knuckles whitening. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" "Your parents," he repeated. "They stopped by my place this morning, said they wanted to take Theo fishing. He seemed excited. I figured, what's the harm?" Delaney felt the world fracture in slow motion. What's the harm? That one sentence shattered her. "Zane, I haven't spoken to them in 7 years. You know why." "Come on, Delaney. They're his grandparents. They seemed totally normal, harmless." Harmless. That word stabbed her harder than anything else, because she knew what they were capable of. She had lived it, survived it. Now her son was out there with them. "Where?" she barked, already reaching for her keys. "Zane, where did they take him?" "Silverwood Lake, I think. The one with the camping grounds on the north side." But Delaney knew better. It wasn't Silverwood. It was Blackwater Lake. The same place her father once called a test site. The same place her brother Tom ran from and never returned home again. Delaney didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't slam the phone against the wall, though every cell in her body told her to. Instead, she went silent. Her mind, once racing, suddenly grew sharp, clear, deadly. She moved like muscle memory keys: wallet, phone, coat. The world around her blurred. All she could hear was Theo's voice from breakfast. "Can we have chocolate chips?" Now he was God knows where, with people who thought 6-year-olds should be tested like soldiers, like she once was. Her hand trembled on the doorknob. Voiceover cue. "I told him to never let them near my son. He didn't listen. Now my son is lost, in the very same woods where I once almost died." The ache that filled her chest wasn't panic. It was rage. Cold. Controlled. Generational. She had spent years escaping those woods. Now she was going back in. Not as a child this time, but as a mother with fire in her bones. The road north was long, too long. Delaney's knuckles gripped the steering wheel until her fingers ached. Her eyes flicked between the clock and the trees flashing past outside the window, mile after mile of wilderness, pulling her deeper into memory. The deeper she drove, the younger she felt. Her hands were adult hands. But her heart was 9 years old again. Every bend in the road whispered something familiar. The smell of pine, the way the light hit the leaves, the flicker of deer crossing signs that made her stomach twist with something primal. She knew this place, not from maps, but from nightmares. Blackwater Lake wasn't just a location, it was a wound, a place stitched into the very fabric of her trauma, and now her son was out there. Delaney rolled down the window, letting the air hit her face. It didn't help. It just made her remember the cold, the damp forest floor, her father's voice echoing in her head like a ghost. "You'll find your way back when you're hungry enough." She blinked hard, focused. This wasn't about her, not this time. It was about Theo. But God help her, it felt like she was driving straight back into hell. The parking lot was nearly empty. One truck, old, rusted, familiar, her father's. Delaney slammed her car into park and practically flew out the door. The lake shimmered beyond the trees, deceptively calm. Birds chirped, water lapped the shore gently. It was peaceful, too peaceful. And then she saw them. Her mother, sitting cross-legged on a plaid blanket knitting. Her father, reading a paperback novel beside a wicker picnic basket. No Theo. No sign of a 6-year-old. No backpack. No toys. No tiny shoes. Nothing. Delaney's chest tightened. She stormed across the clearing. "Where is he?" she shouted, voice cracking. "Where is Theo?" Her mother looked up calmly, as if Delaney had merely interrupted a quiet afternoon in the park. Her father closed his book with a sigh, then smiled. That smile. "He's out there," he said, gesturing toward the tree line. "He needed this." Delaney stared at them, stunned, like she'd just stepped into a scene from her own childhood, only now her son was the one they were testing. "He's 6, she growled. "He's a child, not a soldier." Her mother clicked her knitting needles. "You never learned resilience because we always came too soon." Delaney felt her whole body go cold. "You left me," she hissed, "and now you've left him." Her father stood, brushing grass from his pants. "If he's strong, he'll come back. If he's not, better you find out now." Delaney didn't blink, didn't breathe. She stared at her father, her voice razor thin. "You abandoned him." But he didn't flinch. He didn't even look guilty. "We prepared him," he said, like it was obvious. "Theo needs to learn how to survive in the real world. No one's going to hold his hand forever." Delaney's pulse pounded in her ears. Her mother chimed in, still knitting. "You coddle him, Delaney. That boy is too soft. He won't make it unless he learns how to endure." Endure. That word, that philosophy. It was the foundation of her own childhood and the root of all her wounds. "He's 6, she shouted. "He's not supposed to endure. He's supposed to be safe."
Her father's voice lowered, dangerously calm. Pain builds character. Fear teaches wisdom. Struggle shapes strength. We did it for you, and you turned out just fine. Delaney laughed, bitter, sharp. Do I look fine to you? They said nothing, because they knew, and still they believed they were right. Delaney looked at the trees. Somewhere in that forest, her son was alone. And these two people, the ones who claimed to love her, had left him there on purpose. Delaney's fingers fumbled with her phone. Her voice was shaking, not from fear, but from the sheer force of holding herself together. She pressed 911 and brought the phone to her ear, trying to keep her voice steady as the dispatcher answered. 911, what's your emergency? My name is Delaney Morgan, she began quickly. My 6-year-old son has been left alone in the woods by my parents. They took him without permission. I have sole custody. This is a child abduction and endangerment case. He's out there alone. There was a pause. Too long. Ma'am, you said he's with his grandparents. No, he was. Now he's gone. They left him in the forest as part of some twisted survival training. And you're sure he's not just playing nearby? Delaney's breath hitched. Her hand gripped the edge of her car door. No, I'm not being dramatic. They did this to me when I was a kid. I know what this is. He's 6. He doesn't even like the dark, let alone the woods. Ma'am, we'll notify a local unit to check the area. Check the... She nearly choked. He could be hurt. He could be lost or scared or... The dispatcher's voice cut in, calm and clinical. We understand, but since the child was with family and there's no clear sign of distress, this may not qualify as an active abduction. Delaney slammed her hand on the steering wheel. She felt it rising. The fury, the helplessness, the familiar ache of not being believed. It was happening again. No one listened when she was 9, and no one was listening now. The rain had turned to needles, sharp, relentless. Delaney's boots sank deep into the mud, each step heavy and trembling with panic. Beside her, Joel, the local ranger, moved quickly but cautiously, flashlight cutting through the blackness like a blade. Are you sure this is where they left him? Joel asked, breath ragged. Yes, Delaney snapped. Somewhere between the fire trail and the stream. This is where they used to leave me. Joel looked at her, then said nothing. He knew. He didn't need to ask more. Branches clawed at Delaney's coat. Her jeans were soaked. Her lungs burned. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Theo's afraid of the dark, she whispered to herself. He hates thunder, hates loud wind. And it was thundering now. It was screaming. Joel pointed to something glinting in the mud, a sock. Tiny, wet, blue with stars. Delaney fell to her knees, snatched it up with trembling hands. It's his. Oh God, it's his. Her voice cracked, but she stood, stronger. We're close. They kept moving, past twisted roots, fallen trees, soaked moss. Every shadow was a threat. Every gust of wind felt like a warning. But Delaney wasn't 9 years old anymore. She wasn't prey. She was a mother. And she was going to find her son, or she was going to tear this entire forest apart. They weren't just walking through a forest. They were walking through Theo's fear. Each tree was a question, each branch a challenge, and then a clue. Joel froze, hitting something half buried in wet leaves. There, he said. Delaney turned, then gasped. It was a sock, soaked, tiny, blue with stars. That's Theo's, she whispered, voice cracking. He wore those to bed 2 nights ago. Joel crouched and scanned the area. His beam landed on something else, a stick propped up against a root. Deliberate. Delaney leaned in. 3 scratch marks, rough, carved with something sharp. She knew immediately. That's his. He used to make secret codes in the sandbox, she said, tears springing up. 3 scratches means this way. He's leaving signs for me. Joel stared at her. He's smart. He's scared, she replied, but he still believes I'll find him. The wind howled, rain kept falling, but now they weren't just searching blindly. Now they were following a path, a child's desperate trail, a mother's fragile hope. The forest wasn't just cold, it was familiar. Delaney stopped, her chest heaved. Somewhere between the rustle of wet leaves and the sting of wind across her cheek, she felt it, a memory. "We'll come back for you, Delaney." That's what they said. She had believed them. She'd waited hours. Then night came, and so did the fear. She remembered sitting on damp earth, knees to her chest, counting stars she couldn't see through the canopy. She remembered trying not to cry because they told her tears were weakness. But she cried anyway, and the forest heard everything. "Are you okay?" Joel asked, noticing she'd frozen. Delaney blinked. "Sorry, I've been here before." "With your parents?" She nodded. "They called it training. I called it abandonment." A gust of wind blew through the trees, and suddenly she heard it again. The sound of her own younger self crying, calling, begging. And now, so many years later, her son was out there, alone, in the same damn forest. This time, she wasn't the girl being left behind. This time, she was the one coming back to end the cycle. Joel knelt beside a fallen log, brushing away wet pine needles. That's when he saw it. "Delaney, you need to see this." She hurried over, heart pounding. It was a scrap of notebook paper, damp, creased, and held down by a rock. She picked it up with shaking fingers. Crayon lines, childlike strokes. Trees, a crooked river, a tiny red circle marked with an X. "It's a map," she whispered. "He made a map." Tears welled up in her eyes. Theo hadn't just wandered aimlessly. He was trying to be found. Then Joel's walkie-talkie crackled. "This is Ranger Daniels, picking up faint thermal movement near Sector 7. Could be animal, could be small human, moving slowly." Delaney's hands tightened on the map. He was still out there, still moving, still trying. "He's reliving my childhood," she murmured. "But I never left him. I'm still here." That's when the fear hit, because if Theo had the strength to map his way through hell, then someone else out there was teaching him how. And that was the part that terrified her most. The forest had grown darker, the rain heavier. But then something glinted in Joel's flashlight beam. Delaney ran forward and fell to her knees. There, beneath a tree stump half covered by leaves and mud, a rock, painted with a smiley face. Next to it, 3 sticks arranged in a triangle. And beside that, letters scratched into bark with shaky hands. "Mommy, find me." Delaney's breath caught in her throat. "He's leaving signs," she whispered. "Not random, not lost. He wants me to follow." Joel stood back, quiet. Delaney began connecting the pieces like only a mother could. The sticks weren't just symbols, they were markers. The drawings weren't doodles, they were breadcrumbs. Each one told her where to look next. And the letters, those 4 small, desperate words, "Mommy, find me." Not help, not save me, but find me. Because Theo believed she could. Because Theo believed in her. And now she had no choice but to prove him right. The storm had eased slightly, but the cold remained. Joel held a branch back, letting Delaney step through the thicket first. Then she saw it. A lean-to, primitive, built from sticks, leaves, moss. And inside, chocolate bar wrappers, a crumpled drawing, and a red shoelace she recognized immediately, Theo's. Delaney dropped to her knees, gently touching the small shelter. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't random. "He built this," she breathed. The roof was angled just enough to keep the worst of the rain out. The floor was lined with grass. There were stones forming a half circle, a tiny fire pit. Theo had tried to survive, just like she once had. A surge of pride rose up, then fear slammed it down. "He shouldn't know how to do this," she whispered. "Not at 6."
Joel knelt beside her silent. "He learned from them," she said bitterly. "All those years I fought to keep him away from this, and now he's using the very lessons I nearly died from." She touched the fire pit again, fingers trembling. Theo was alive because he remembered, because someone once taught him to survive alone. The fire crackled softly. Delaney sat just outside Theo's little shelter, her knees drawn to her chest, soaked blanket draped over her shoulders. Joel had been quiet all night, but now, as the moon filtered through the trees, he finally spoke. "You're not the only one they did this to." Delaney looked over, startled. Joel stared into the fire. "Summer. I was 8. Your parents ran a camp back then, resilience training for boys. That's what they called it." Delaney's heart stopped. "Wait, you were one of them?" she asked, her voice thin. Joel nodded, eyes clouded. "They tied blindfolds over our eyes, dropped us in pairs out in the woods, told us to find our way back or not bother coming at all. No map, no food, just shame if you failed." Delaney covered her mouth. Joel's voice shook only slightly. "I didn't find my way back. They left me out here 3 days. I drank from the stream, slept under roots, thought I saw wolves. When they found me, your father said, 'Now you're strong.' I wasn't strong," he said bitter. "I was hungry, scared, and changed forever." Delaney felt tears burn her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" Joel smiled faintly. "Because for years, I didn't want to believe it happened. And when I finally accepted it, I saw you, still breathing, still fighting for your boy. And I thought maybe I could help him in the way no one helped me." The storm returned like a beast. Winds howled through the trees. Thunder cracked above the canopy. Rain slashed sideways. Visibility less than 15 feet. Delaney gripped her jacket tighter, soaked through. Her lips blue, her body shaking, but not from fear anymore, from fury. The search crew from town finally arrived. 3 men, all geared up, all polite. "Ma'am," one said gently, "we really advise we wait until morning. Conditions are getting worse." Delaney didn't blink. "My son's been alone all night," she said, voice raw. "You want me to wait for morning? How about I ask him if the wolves are planning to wait too?" The man hesitated. Joel stepped forward. "She's right. We keep moving." But the radios were already crackling. A voice from base. "Visibility down to 0 in quadrant 4. Pull back." Delaney turned away from them. "Just walked. Into the trees. Alone." "Delaney," Joel called, chasing her. "You can't just—" "Yes, I can!" Her voice cut clean through the storm. She turned to face him. Her eyes weren't wide anymore. They were steady. "He's out there. He's cold. He's scared. And he's waiting for me. I won't let him wait alone." For a second, no one moved. Then Joel nodded slowly and followed her into the dark. It was the smallest thing that stopped them, a single muddy footprint, half smudged. Child-sized, pressed into the wet forest floor. Delaney froze. Joel knelt beside it, instantly shining his flashlight. "It's fresh," he whispered. "Less than 2 hours." Delaney's breath hitched. Her eyes scanned the ground. There, another and another leading downhill into a narrow path framed by moss and mist. And then, over the distant roar of wind and rain, they heard something else. Rushing water. Delaney's knees nearly gave way. She grabbed Joel's arm. "The falls," she whispered. "He's heading toward the falls." Joel's jaw tightened. "That current's dangerous. If he slips—" "Don't," her voice broke. "Please, just don't." They moved faster now, half running, slipping, breath sharp. Branches clawed at their faces. The earth gave way under each step. But those tiny footprints never stopped. Until— "There!" Delaney screamed. Near the edge of the cliff, just before the cascade spilled into the deep ravine, a figure, small, soaked, curled up by a rock. Theo.
Delaney's heart hammered as she crested the last ridge. Rain soaked her hair and stung her face, but she barely noticed. There he was, curled on a boulder at the edge of the falls. His small frame shook from cold and fear. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Delaney dropped her flashlight, sprinted forward, slipped on moss, nearly tumbled over the cliff. But she caught herself, scrambled the last few feet. "Theo!" she cried, dropping to her knees beside him. He looked up, eyes wide and glassy with tears. His blue sweater clung to him like a soggy second skin. He tried to speak, but his teeth chattered so hard, only a faint whisper came out. "Mom." Delaney scooped him into her arms, wrapping her coat around both of them. His tiny body shook against her. She pressed her cheek to his, tasting the salt of his tears mixing with the rain. "I've got you," she sobbed, voice cracking. "I've got you. I won't let go." He nodded against her shoulder, too exhausted to cry, but alive, still alive. And in that moment, the world fell away, leaving only her and her son clinging to each other amidst the storm. Delaney wrapped Theo tighter, rocking him gently as she sat on the wet ground. His chattering teeth slowed, but his lips trembled as he found his voice. "Grandpa, he showed me how to make the sticks," Theo whispered, eyes down. "He said, follow the X's." "Build a shelter, find water." Delaney stroked his hair, waiting. "Then he left," Theo choked out, voice cracking. "He said, if you can't finish alone, it doesn't count." Silence stretched. Delaney's heart broke all over again. She felt every inch of the 6-year-old's betrayal by the one who was supposed to love him most. "Mommy," Theo's voice was so small, "I tried. I made the lean-to, but I was scared." Delaney lifted his chin, meeting his eyes. "Shh," she said softly. "You did more than survive, baby. You followed his cruel test, and you passed because you never stopped hoping I'd come." Theo's tears fell onto her coat. Delaney pressed her cheek against his. "You are never alone," she vowed. "Not ever, because I'm here always." Delaney's legs felt like jelly as she staggered toward the clearing. Theo clutched against her chest. Every drop of rain pounding her back felt like a drumbeat of victory and relief. Behind her, Joel's headlamp beam bobbed through the mist. Voices' soft shouts of relief grew louder. They were almost there. Delaney held Theo's face to hers, brushing rain-soaked strands of hair from his forehead. His eyelids fluttered. He pressed his small hand against her cheek as if to confirm she was really there. "You're safe now," she murmured, voice thick with tears. "I swear I'll never let you face this alone again." Slow-motion frames, Delaney's boot splashing through a puddle, water droplets flying outward. Theo's tiny hand gripping the collar of her coat, her determined eyes reflecting the flashing lights of searchers. A silhouette of Joel stepping back to give them space. As they emerged onto the frost-damp grass of base camp, paramedics and rangers parted, making a clear path. One ranger knelt, offering a warm blanket. Another lifted Theo gently. Delaney let him go just an inch so she could fasten the hood over his head and tuck him into the blanket's embrace. "Mommy," Theo's voice was a whisper. "I'm so cold." Delaney shook her head, hugging him again. "I know, baby, but you're with me now." Paramedics checked Theo's vitals, shivering, dehydrated, bruised but alive. Delaney hovered close, brushing mud from his cheek, softly apologizing for failing to protect him and promising to make it right. "Never again," she whispered into his hair. "You'll never be alone again." The fluorescent lights of the emergency room felt harsh after the muted chaos of the forest. Yet as Delaney stepped inside, carrying Theo swaddled in the blanket, she felt safe. A nurse greeted them immediately, her voice gentle. "I'm Nurse Carter. We're going to check him over, okay?" Delaney nodded, tears still wet on her cheeks. Joel stood quietly behind, offering a steady presence. In moments, Theo was on a treatment bed. A pediatrician examined his scratches and bruises, cleaned them carefully, and applied ointment. A nurse wrapped fresh blankets around him and placed a small plastic cup of juice by his side. Monitors beeped softly, tracking his heart rate and temperature. Theo's eyes fluttered open, confusion giving way to relief when he saw his mother. Delaney sat beside him, holding his hand. She brushed a damp curl from his forehead. "Mom!" Theo's voice was hoarse, but there was a spark of recognition. "You're here." "Always," Delaney whispered. "I'm never leaving your side." The doctor stepped forward with a clipboard. "He's stable," she reported. "A bit dehydrated, mild hypothermia, and a few superficial cuts, but nothing life-threatening. We'll keep him overnight for observation and fluids." Delaney exhaled, a weight lifting from her chest. Joel gently patted her shoulder, then handed her a cup of hot tea from a nearby cart. As Theo drifted into a drowsy haze, Delaney leaned back in a chair, exhaustion and relief mingling. In that sterile, bright room, the physical wounds began to close, and the first threads of emotional healing started to weave. Delaney didn't have time to rest. As soon as Theo was settled under hospital observation, she stood and turned to Joel. "I need to press charges, now." Joel nodded, already on his phone. Moments later, they were in a small, fluorescent-lit interview room at the local police station. Delaney sat across from Officer Martinez, stern but sympathetic. "Officer, I want to file a formal complaint against my parents. Child endangerment, kidnapping, whatever it takes." The officer opened a folder and slid a blank statement form toward her. "Start from the beginning, ma'am." Delaney took a steadying breath. 7 years ago, I cut ties with them. Today, they took my 6-year-old son into the woods, Blackwater Lake, and left him there to survive. He was alone in the rain without food or proper clothing. It's criminal. Officer Martinez listened, jotting notes. "Do you have any evidence?" he asked. Delaney passed over photos: the sock, the stick, map, the shelter, and her phone's call log with Zane's call. "This is all I have. And my son's witness statement when he's ready." The officer looked up, resolute. "We'll open a case immediately. We'll need your parents' cooperation, but based on what you've described, there's sufficient grounds for child endangerment and unlawful confinement. They'll be served papers today." Delaney's jaw set. No plea bargains, no leniency, not this time. Officer Martinez gave a firm nod. "Understood, ma'am. We'll proceed accordingly." Delaney exhaled, part relief, part steel. She was no longer just a victim. She was a mother demanding justice. Delaney stepped out of the police station into the drizzle, her coat still damp from the ER. Her phone buzzed. The screen read, "Tom Morgan." Her breath caught. Tom, her brother who'd vanished a decade ago, was calling. She answered on the second ring. "Delaney, Tom, I didn't think I'd ever hear from you." "Tom, I saw the news. Blackwater Lake, survivalist grandparents? I knew it had to be them." Delaney's heart pounded. "Delaney, Tom, I'm in the middle of filing charges." "Tom, I'll be there. I'll testify. Everything I remember." Silence stretched. Then Tom, "I was 12 when I ran away. You warned me, but I thought I could handle it. They left me too, just like you and now Theo. I'm sorry I disappeared, but I've been following them online, collecting proof. Whatever you need, I'll help." Delaney's eyes filled. "Delaney, thank you." "Tom, hang tight, sis. I'm on my way." She ended the call and looked up at the sky. Rain still fell, but now each drop felt like a promise. Her brother was coming home, and this time they would face the past together. Later that evening, in the quiet corner of Theo's hospital room, Joel appeared at the door. He carried a small wooden box, worn edges, brass clasp, like a secret he'd been guarding. Delaney looked up, surprised. Theo was dozing, cheeks pink and warm under layers of blankets. Joel knelt beside her. "I thought he might need something to remember this night by." He opened the box, revealing a handcrafted compass. The face was polished wood, the needle curved gently.
See, most compasses point north. Joel tapped the bezel, but this one points to you. Delaney blinked as Joel handed the compass to Theo. He stirred, eyes still heavy. "Mommy," he mumbled. Delaney took the compass and held it flat. The needle swung, not to the red N, but directly toward her heart. Her breath caught. Joel smiled softly. "Whenever he feels lost, he just points it this way." Delaney's voice was barely above a whisper. "Thank you. This means everything." She closed the box and pressed Joel's hand. "It ends with me," she said to both of them. "No more tests, no more running. This ends now." Boxes lined the empty apartment. Books, clothes, toys, each item a promise of normalcy. Delaney led Theo through the front door of their new second-floor unit. Sunlight streamed through large windows overlooking a busy city street. Cars, pedestrians, laughter. No trees, no shadows that whispered childhood nightmares. Theo's eyes widened as he set down his small backpack. "Is this our new home?" he asked, voice soft. "Yes, baby," Delaney said, kneeling to hug him. "Safe, bright, all yours." They spent the afternoon unpacking together. Theo arranged his dinosaur books on a low shelf. He placed his special compass on the windowsill, needle pointing toward his mother. Delaney watched him, chest swelling with relief. She had traded pine and mud for concrete and sunlight. And in this new place, every memory would be theirs to write fresh pages, blank and hopeful. "Look," Theo said, pointing outside. "Friends." Children ran by on the sidewalk, calling hello. Delaney smiled back. "Why don't you go say hi?" she encouraged. "I'll be right here." As Theo dashed off to make new friends, Delaney stood by the window taking it all in. The city's hum, the morning light, and a future free from the echoes of the past. In this new home, with no forests to fear, Delaney and Theo would finally be safe. Days turned into weeks, and each morning Delaney found new proof that Theo was healing. On the coffee table lay a stack of drawings, bright suns with smiling faces, stick figures holding hands. A big yellow house with no trees around it, only stars in the sky. "Look, Mom," Theo said one day, showing her a picture of two figures under a rainbow. "That's us, me and you." He laughed as he warmed his hands around a mug of hot cocoa. His giggle was light, like wind chimes. At bedtime, he no longer asked for night lights in every corner. One small lamp was enough. When Delaney tucked him in, he yawned deeply. "Mom, I'm not scared of the dark anymore." She smiled, kissing his forehead. "That's my brave boy." That night, Delaney listened at the door. Soft breathing, no tears, no flinching at shadows, just peace. Late at night, after Theo was tucked in and the apartment had fallen silent, Delaney sat at the small wooden desk by the window. A single lamp cast a warm pool of light over an open journal. She uncapped her pen and paused, staring at the blank page. For years, she avoided writing about her childhood, convinced that the act of putting it on paper would unleash memories she couldn't control. But tonight was different. Delaney wrote slowly, deliberately. "I am no longer running. I am sitting here, in this safe apartment with my son asleep just down the hall. I look back and see a little girl who thought fear was love, who equated pain with preparation. But that girl is gone." She flipped the page and began a new entry, letters she would never send. "Dear Walter and Naween, you raised me in a world of tests and trials. You taught me to survive alone. But I learned something else, to choose love over fear. I forgive the child you once broke because she teaches the mother I am today. This ends with me." Tears blurred the ink. She closed her eyes, releasing the weight she'd carried for decades. On the next page, she simply wrote, "Faith, I believe in our future." Delaney closed the journal and looked out the window at the city lights. For the first time, she felt whole. A gentle hush filled the room as Delaney stepped inside Theo's bedroom. The only light came from a small night lamp on his desk, casting a golden glow over everything it touched. Theo sat at his little table, coloring with careful strokes. He looked up and smiled when he saw his mother. "Look, Mom," he said, holding his drawing just below the lamp. "I finished it." Delaney knelt beside him, heart pounding. She took both his small hands in hers and guided him to hold the paper in front of them. On the page, a tall, modern building, windows painted bright yellow, almost like lanterns welcoming them inside. Two figures outlined simply, but unmistakably, standing hand in hand. One with long hair, Delaney, one smaller, Theo, and a third figure beside them with a ranger's hat, Joel. Above them, a sky strewn with hundreds of stars, each dot carefully placed. No ominous trees, no creeping shadows, only open space and light. Delaney's vision blurred with tears. She pressed her forehead against Theo's. "Delaney, the forest doesn't scare me anymore, because my son isn't lost in it. He's home, and so am I." She lifted the drawing slightly, letting the camera's frame the final shot linger on that bright yellow building beneath the vast starry sky. As the music swelled softly, Delaney straightened and tucked the drawing gently into his favorite storybook, a sign that his imagination and their family would fill these pages with safety and joy. True strength isn't forged in solitude, it's built through connection. Delaney and Theo's journey shows us that surviving hardship doesn't mean going it alone. By leaning on love, trust, and the support of those who care, we find the courage to heal old wounds and move forward stronger than ever. If this story moved you, hit subscribe and join us at Through Her Eyes for more powerful tales of resilience, motherhood, and hope. Don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a moment of inspiration.